Welcome to Voyage Daily Tech, the most important news personalized for you every day, supported by Voyage.com.
After listening to today's news, you'll know, first, India's cloud farming boom creates a new AI data bottleneck for the US and Europe, raising risks of strategic dependency and annotation bias. This discussion will reveal how India's dominance in data labeling creates a new dependency for Silicon Valley and what it means for AI bias. Second, Google's $15 billion AI hub in India marks a major geopolitical shift, challenging China's digital Silk Road and redrawing the global tech map. We'll analyse why this massive investment is a geopolitical turning point and how it affects the global competition between US and Chinese tech ecosystems. Third, GM's $1.6 billion EV write-down signals a crisis for legacy automakers, crippled by platform failures and US policy whiplash. We'll examine how this expensive failure impacts the entire North American EV supply chain and highlights the risks of unstable US tech policy. Fourth, Oura's $11 billion valuation signals a major shift in wearables as it pivots from a wellness gadget to a regulated healthcare platform. In this episode, we'll break down its pivot into a regulated medical platform and what it signals for the future of personal health, data, and liability. Fifth, California's new AI law forces chatbots to report harm, creating a technical challenge but gaining surprising support from big tech. Today, we'll take a closer look at why big tech is endorsing these rules and its implications for creating a compliance moat against smaller startups. Let's start with a single fact that might just change your entire perspective on AI. The world's most advanced algorithms, from ChatGPT-like systems to facial recognition, are being trained and validated not in Silicon Valley, but in small rural towns across India. A while back, we dug into the hardware side of this story, the export controls on advanced AI chips, and the twin investigations into a key NVIDIA customer allegedly helping Chinese firms access banned tech. That fight was about who gets the compute. Today, the story shifts to who supplies the human intelligence that teaches those models what to do. So, what is this work exactly? It's the hidden foundation of the entire AI revolution. The work is called data annotation or data labeling. Essentially, these workers are the teachers for AI. They manually identify objects in images, transcribe audio, and check the accuracy of AI-generated text to create high-quality training data. Without this human-led effort, AI models simply can't learn to see, hear, or understand the world reliably. And as we discussed a while back, with regulators now chasing access to CUDA-powered compute, not just the physical boards, access to high-quality labeled data is emerging as the second critical bottleneck. This is the new engine of AI, a trend called cloud farming, and it's creating a massive global shift. One expert put it bluntly, Silicon Valley may be building the AI engines, but the day-to-day work that keeps those engines reliable increasingly comes from India's cloud farming industry. Previously, we analysed how export controls can redirect where and how AI gets built. The latest development is that the labour and data pipelines themselves are consolidating in new places, far from the chip foundries and data centres. This dynamic creates a fascinating and risky geopolitical situation. To draw a parallel, think of Taiwan's role in manufacturing the world's most advanced semiconductor chips. The world's tech industry depends on them. In the same way, India is rapidly becoming the single concentrated hub for the AI data supply chain. This heavy reliance on one region for such a critical component of AI development creates major strategic vulnerabilities for countries in the US and Europe. Continuing our last discussion, where enforcement is moving from hardware to access, the parallel here would be something like know your customer for data pipelines whose labeling, where and under what standards. Because this is becoming just as sensitive as who taps into restricted compute. This isn't a small side gig. The numbers are staggering. One co-founder of a major cloud farming firm says 70% of their work comes directly from the US, and the growth is explosive. A CEO in the space notes that AI-related work is set to jump from 40% of their business to nearly 100% very soon. If chip controls create friction on the supply of compute, the demand signal for trusted, scalable human-in-the-loop work only grows louder, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. But this is where the situation takes a more complex turn. This shift is tapping into a massive, overlooked workforce. While big cities have been the traditional hubs, 60% of India's graduates actually come from small towns. For many, this is their first ever salaried job transforming family finances and futures. Now, while these jobs are absolutely life-changing for many, it's crucial to understand the pay scale. Research shows that these data annotation roles in rural India typically pay between 1.1 to 4.2 lakhs per year. To put that in context, a traditional AI data scientist in an urban centre like Bangalore or Mumbai can earn an average of 18.5 lakhs. So while it's a world-class career opportunity in one sense, it's also a form of digital labour that operates on a completely different economic scale than the tech jobs we see in big cities. This has ignited a high-stakes race for dominance. Experts believe India has a 5 to 7 year head start on competitors like the Philippines, and the pressure is on to leverage that advantage before the gap narrows. And just as we noted a while back, that sanctions can produce unintended consequences, like giving domestic players room to sprint. Concentrating the data supply chain in one place can create powerful advantages, but also dependencies that are hard to unwind. What many people overlook is that if one specific cultural group is predominantly training AI for the entire world, there's a real risk of embedding their own unique biases into these systems. For example, how annotators interpret facial expressions or social situations can be influenced by their own cultural background. This is called annotation bias, and it means we could be building global AI systems that see the world through a very narrow lens, in the same way that access to chips and CUDA ecosystems shapes what gets built. Who provides the labels quietly shapes how these systems perceive the world. The prediction is that in the next 3 to 5 years, AI and Gen AI will create close to 100 million jobs in training and validation. Now, that 100 million job figure is incredibly optimistic, and we have to ask if it's realistic. The World Economic Forum, for example, projected that AI might create 97 million new roles, but also displace 85 million jobs by 2025. This leads to the ultimate paradox. Are these workers being hired to train the very AI systems that will eventually make their jobs obsolete? In reality, it's complicated. Research suggests that as AI gets smarter, the nature of the work will shift to more complex, specialized tasks that still require a human in the loop rather than disappearing completely. The core conflict is now clear. Can these rural hubs overcome perceptions and infrastructure challenges to secure their position? A while back, we watched regulators try to police a sprawling hardware supply chain through investigations and access controls. Expect a similar scrutiny to creep into the human data supply chain as it becomes more central to national strategies. This isn't just about outsourcing IT support. We're at a tipping point. If cloud farming continues to scale, small-town India could become the world's largest hub for AI operations, just as it became the hub for IT services 2 decades ago. And as the battle over chips intensifies, the world is waking up to a parallel truth. Whoever organizes the people and the data at scale will quietly wield as much power as those who supply the silicon. We were just talking about the human intelligence pipeline feeding AI in India. Now, let's shift our focus to the massive hardware infrastructure being built in the very same country. Google's parent company, Alphabet, just announced a $15 billion bet on the future of artificial intelligence. But the real story isn't just the money, it's where it's going. This massive investment won't be in Silicon Valley. It's headed for Visakhapatnam, India. This move is a massive vote of confidence in India's digital future, but believe it or not, it's also a high-stakes geopolitical play. We're not just talking about building servers, we're talking about redrawing the global tech map. This isn't just another data center. The CEO of Google Cloud, Thomas Kurian, went on the record with a statement that puts this move in perspective, calling it, quote, the largest AI hub that we're going to be investing in anywhere in the world outside of the United States. So what is an AI hub really? This facility is being built to do a few critical things. First, it will have what's called gigawatt scale compute capacity to help power Google's own global services, like search and YouTube. Second, it will provide advanced AI infrastructure directly to Indian companies and startups, giving them the tools to build their own AI-powered solutions. And third, it includes a brand new international subsea cable gateway, which will make India's entire digital backbone faster and more resilient. This decision comes as a direct counter-narrative to the persistent calls for American companies to prioritize domestic investment. So, what's the real driver behind this global power play? It's a strategic countermove in a global chess match. It serves as a direct challenge to China's Digital Silk Road initiative, which aims to expand its own digital infrastructure and technology standards across the globe. By planting a massive flag in India, a democratic power, Google is helping to build a powerful alternative to China's model. It's a calculated move into a market with low data costs and one of the fastest growing internet user bases on the planet. However, if you zoom out, you'll see another layer of strategy at play. This isn't just about one company, it signals a much larger trend. India's entire data center industry has grown at a staggering rate, nearly tripling its capacity since 2019. This creates a fascinating tension because India is also investing heavily in its own sovereign AI, aiming to build a self-sufficient ecosystem. So by welcoming Google, India is walking a tightrope, accelerating its tech future while trying to ensure it doesn't become too dependent on foreign infrastructure. The state of Andhra Pradesh, where Google is building, has an even bigger ambition, a plan to develop 6 gigawatts of data center capacity by 2029. The reason this is a big deal is that building something this massive creates a huge environmental stress test. Operating a giant AI data center in a hot climate like Andhra Pradesh requires an immense amount of energy and water just for cooling. While Google has promised to use renewable energy, there are real questions about the strain this will put on the local power grid and water resources. This project is a fusion of cloud infrastructure, artificial intelligence, and renewable energy systems, creating an entire tech ecosystem from the ground up. But what's the real return for the state of Andhra Pradesh, which is offering subsidies? Actually, the thing about data centers is they don't create a lot of permanent jobs, maybe 50 or so per facility. The real economic impact comes from the construction boom and, more importantly, the massive tax revenues they generate. In Virginia, for example, the data center industry has become a cornerstone of local economies, funding schools and public services through taxes. That's the long-term bet India is making. This $15 billion investment isn't just building a facility, it's a declaration that the center of gravity for global AI development is starting to shift. Speaking of massive multi-billion dollar bets on the future of tech, not all of them are paying off. In fact, one major player has been having a tough time lately. General Motors is about to take a $1.6 billion hit. The reason? Its massive bet on all-electric vehicles is not playing out as anticipated. This is a stunning reversal for a company that was once planning to invest $30 billion into EVs, including dozens of new models. The core of the problem is GM's proprietary Ultium battery platform, which was supposed to be a flexible, one-size-fits-all solution for its entire EV lineup, but the gamble hit major roadblocks. The platform has been more expensive and harder to scale than projected, with GM's own CEO acknowledging that automation equipment supply issues cripple battery module assembly. For example, in the first half of 2023, GM delivered fewer than 2,400 of its flagship Cadillac Lyriqs because of these production bottlenecks. This is the technical failure behind the financial headline. Now, it's facing a massive charge against its earnings, with $400 million in cash being paid out for contract cancellation fees. And that $400 million isn't just an accounting entry, it represents a shockwave hitting the entire North American EV supply chain. These are contracts being cancelled with smaller, lesser-known companies, specialists in battery materials, manufacturing equipment, and software who bet their own futures on GM's electric dream. It reveals just how fragile the entire ecosystem is, where the strategic pivot of one giant can threaten the stability of dozens of other businesses. So what changed? In a public filing, GM put the reason on the record. The company stated, following recent US government policy changes, including the termination of certain consumer tax incentives for EV purchases and the reduction in the stringency of emissions regulations, we expect the adoption rate of EVs to slow. This decision brings into sharp focus what experts call the policy whiplash effect. Here in the US, the political environment can swing dramatically between administrations, creating huge investment risks. When we place the US political environment alongside the European Union's Green Deal, which has consistent CO2 emission reduction targets locked in, the contrast becomes clear. That stability allows for confident long-term investment. In the US, that whiplash can paralyze multi-billion dollar decisions. This isn't just a GM problem, by the way. It's an industry-wide tremor. Crosstown rival Ford Motor already announced a $1.9 billion impact from its own EV pullback, cancelling a large electric SUV and delaying its next generation electric truck. So why are GM and Ford taking these massive write-downs while competitors like Tesla and Hyundai seem more resilient? It gets to the heart of the legacy automakers' dilemma, which comes down to three things: technology, manufacturing, and sales. Legacy automakers are trying to make their complex, expensive battery platforms like Ultium work, while Tesla is driving down costs with its own integrated battery tech. They are also retooling old gas engine factories, which is often less efficient than building a dedicated EV factory from the ground up. And finally, their traditional dealership model can create friction in the sales process compared to the direct-to-consumer model used by newer EV companies. This shockwave was predicted. One prominent analyst warned earlier this year that the industry would see multi-billion-dollar write-downs that are flooding the headlines for the next few years. While GM has gained significant market share this year, climbing to over 13% of the EV market, it's still a distant second to Tesla. This brings us to what you could call the market share paradox. What is the value of gaining market share if every single sale is unprofitable? GM's strategy has been a shotgun approach, offering many different EV models to capture a wide audience. But this spreads resources thin. In contrast, Tesla has a highly focused lineup that allows it to achieve massive economies of scale. To put a number on it, in fiscal year 2024, GM's profit per vehicle was around $5,100. Tesla's was a full $1,000 higher at $6,100. That's the difference between growing market share and growing a profitable business. The core issue is that the overall market is simply not growing as fast as automakers had gambled on. GM's filing also warns that its reassessment of its EV manufacturing footprint is ongoing, signaling that this $1.6 billion charge could be just the beginning of the financial reckoning for automakers who bet big on the electric dream. We're seeing legacy automakers like GM struggle with complex, expensive platforms. At the same time, a completely different story is unfolding in the wearables space, where a minimalist approach is leading to a massive valuation. A company that makes a ring you wear on your finger is now valued at a staggering $11 billion. For years, the battle for your wrist has been dominated by smartwatches like the Apple Watch. But Aura's success validates a completely different approach: the minimalist, passive health monitor. It's a sign that the market is splitting, with many people choosing a device that's less of an interactive computer and more of an invisible health guardian. Oura, the maker of the popular smart ring, just closed a massive $900 million funding round, rocketing its valuation into the stratosphere. And the numbers behind this explosion are jaw-dropping. The company expects to hit $1 billion in sales this year after already doubling its revenue last year to $500 million. Now, get this, Oura sold over 5.5 million rings as of September, a huge jump from just 2.5 million only a few months prior. But that's not the whole picture. The real turning point is Oura's strategic pivot from a consumer wellness gadget into a central healthcare platform. The goal is to become a trusted hub for your personal health. But this move isn't easy. It means navigating complex healthcare regulations like HIPAA in the US to ensure all that new data is private and secure. Oura is making a major play to move beyond fitness and directly into your personal health. The company recently unveiled Health Panels, a feature that integrates blood test results directly into its app, tracking up to 50 different biomarkers. They've even partnered with Dexcom, a leader in glucose monitoring technology, to bring glucose data straight to the Oura platform. By combining your continuous biometric data with periodic clinical lab results, Oura is essentially creating a digital twin of your health. This is an incredibly powerful, comprehensive profile, and that raises a huge question of security. Oura's privacy policy is clear. They state they don't sell your personal data, but creating such a rich, centralized health data set also creates an incredibly valuable target for hackers, making data protection more critical than ever. This isn't just about competing with other smart rings from Samsung or Rincon anymore. This is a direct challenge to the entire wearable health market, putting Oura in the same ring as giants like Apple and Garmin. Interestingly enough, while Apple Health offers a very broad range of monitoring, Oura's strength is its depth, particularly in sleep. In fact, some clinical studies have shown that Oura Ring has superior accuracy in detecting sleep stages compared to a smartwatch. This specialized focus is exactly what gives it an edge in this fight. With a total of $1.5 billion in funding, Oura is no longer just a product. It's a full-blown health tech platform with an $11 billion war chest, aiming to set an entirely new standard for what a wearable can do. And a huge part of that $11 billion valuation isn't just about selling rings. It's about the future value of its massive health data set. Think of it as a data moat, but this isn't a guaranteed gold mine. For instance, the genetics company 23andMe struggled to turn its vast data library into sustainable profits. This new standard also brings up fascinating legal questions. When an AI advisor gives you diet suggestions based on your blood work, what happens if that advice leads to a negative health outcome? Who is liable? We are entering a regulatory grey area, and these are the questions that will define the future of personal health tech. That move into healthcare brings up fascinating legal questions about liability. And speaking of which, lawmakers are already starting to build guardrails around another type of AI advisor, the chatbot. The most unexpected news in the regulatory world today might be this. California just passed a law that forces AI chatbots to tell minors to take a break every 3 hours. This isn't just a random rule, it's actually grounded in real psychology. Research shows that constant screen time can lead to cognitive overload and anxiety. The idea here is that these forced breaks, these little digital wellness nudges, can help alleviate stress and improve focus. The big question, of course, is whether kids will actually listen or just see it as an annoying pop-up. A few days ago, we talked about how intimate, high-stakes conversations with chatbots create a sensitive data trail and how there's no neat database of correct advice to anchor these systems. Continuing that thread, in a sweeping move to regulate big tech, California Governor Gavin Newsom has signed a series of bills aimed directly at AI and social media. The new rules require chatbots to disclose that they are AI and to report certain harmful conversations to crisis hotlines. Forcing an AI to report harmful conversations is incredibly difficult from a technical standpoint. Here's where it gets interesting. AI models are good at identifying keywords related to a crisis, but they often struggle to understand the context. Is a user talking about suicidal thoughts in a therapeutic way to process trauma, or are they in immediate danger? The AI can easily get this wrong, leading to a flood of false positives for crisis centers and major privacy violations for users. It's a massive engineering and ethical challenge, and as we discussed a while back, safety and privacy are in tension here. Detecting distress, usually means training on very sensitive data. Even with policies like deleting data after around 30 days and not using it for training unless you opt in, as OpenAI says, any escalation pipeline can still become a honeypot of deeply personal information, and it sharpens that liability vacuum question of who's responsible when advice goes wrong. The reason for the crackdown? A recent survey revealed a jaw-dropping number. More than 1/5 of Americans now report having an emotional connection with their chatbot. People are leaning on AI for companionship and support, and lawmakers are scrambling to build guardrails. It echoes what we flagged earlier. The new dating coach is a program great for instant validation, but potentially at the expense of developing real-world emotional skills. But the new laws go far beyond chatbots. Social media platforms like Instagram and Snapchat will now be required to display warnings about the potential mental health risks of using their apps. Device makers like Apple and Google must implement age verification tools in their app stores, and penalties for distributing deepfake pornography have been massively increased. This decision creates a whole new economy around age verification. The situation presents a fascinating duality. On one side, this is a huge opportunity for specialized identity tech companies, while on the other, it could just make giants like Apple and Google even more powerful. Apple, for example, has already rolled out its own declared age range system, letting them become the gatekeepers of age data on their platform. And remember that safety privacy trade-off we talked about with guardrails? Age checks shift more identity data into a few centralized hands, which might reduce risk for kids while simultaneously concentrating some very sensitive information. You'd expect an all-out war from Silicon Valley, but here's the real bombshell. Some of the biggest players are actually getting on board. OpenAI called the law a meaningful move forward. And in a stunning twist, both Google and Meta have publicly endorsed the age verification measures, with a Google executive calling it one of the most thoughtful approaches to child safety. So why the sudden cooperation? This is a classic strategy. By getting involved early, big tech can help shape regulations to be more manageable for them. They can build what's called a compliance moat rules that they, with their massive legal and engineering teams, can easily handle. but which create a huge barrier for smaller startups and competitors. Continuing our last discussion about the liability vacuum, today the focus shifts to how these guardrails may also entrench incumbents solving for safety on paper while raising the bar for everyone else, because the rules apply to everyone, leveling the playing field. And for AI companies still figuring out their business models, it's easy to build in restrictions from the start. While other states and countries have passed similar laws, this is different. This is what some call the California model, passing a series of very specific targeted laws, one issue at a time. It's a different strategy from the European Union, which passed the massive all-in-one AI Act. This patchwork of state laws creates a complex and expensive maze for companies to navigate. Because these tech giants are based in California, the rules made in the Golden State don't just stay there. They signal a massive shift for the entire industry, setting a new standard that will ripple across the country and the world.
That's it for today on Voyage Daily Tech. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.